The core problem with manifestation is it's the ego. The ego is the collection of negative belief loops we have around ourselves, these false perspectives. And we allow our ego to trick us into thinking that, well, if I keep listening to my fear, it's going to help me. But actually all it does is just attract the thing that we're most confronted about. So to start with, it's really about being honest with yourself and going, do I have the right foundations in order to manifest? If you don't have the belief loops supporting your manifestation, it doesn't matter how much you try to manifest, you'll actually keep manifesting the opposite. So there's a lot of dangerous practices out there with manifestation. This was something I had to have a realization myself as well. They're just like, oh yeah, just do this, do that. Not if the subconscious is working against you. First, you need to go in and do that deep inner recoding work. And once you have that working, and it doesn't have to be very strong, it just has to move into a positive direction, then we can manifest. So I'd actually tell people the biggest mistake with manifesting is you're manifesting.
Finnian Kelly, welcome to Passion, Love, Pursuit. I am so excited to have this conversation because I think it's the most perfect time of the year to talk about what you really specialize in, and that is intentionality. I love this topic so much. I can't begin to tell you enough about it, is leading your life intentionally. I want to know from you, what does that mean, intentionality, and how can we bring that more forward into our life this new year?
Well, thanks, Erica. I enjoyed just our little pre-ramble before the show started, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. So intentionality for me, it's a feelings first approach to really leading and living our life. And I define it as identifying how you want to feel and then taking incremental steps towards making that a reality. Now, we as a society are very outcomes focused. We love setting goals, especially in this new year time of the year, and we're focusing on, okay, I want to lose 50 kilos. I want to attract my partner. But the problem with those type of metrics are they end up becoming demotivating after a period of time because they remind you every day that you're not where you want to be. So flipping the script and realizing that the reason why we want an outcome is because really we want a feeling. We need to change the order around and make the feelings the focus, because feelings, you can go after it every day. I wake up this morning, I was feeling a little bit tired because I've got a new baby son who's not having the greatest sleeps. And I could have easily focused on that throughout the day. But instead I went, I want to be energetic. I want to be positive. So I reflected in this moment, well, what can I do to make myself feel that? And I focused on some gratitude. I did some breathing. I connected with my son. And then suddenly what happens? I start feeling that way. And now the funny thing is I'll get better outcomes throughout my day.
I love how you broke that down because it's so important, because I think so many of us are not really consciously aware of how we're starting off our day, and we're kind of just running on, the normal things we do instead of actually focusing on the next steps to take and how to lead more into the day more powerfully. And so I love how you talk about that. So leading ourselves into the new year, I really want to crystallize this point. So what is the best question we should ask ourselves to gain more clarity and to lead our lives more intentionally? What do we need to focus on?
Yeah, well, I'm going to repeat myself, but it's how do I want to feel? That's the most important question. So often we're focusing on what do we want, the achievements that really matter to us, but how do we want to feel grounds us in our truth and in the present moment. So I do a few different activities for the end of the year, new year. I do a deep reflection of the year where I have a series of questions. I think it's one of my tools on one of my apps where I was literally go through and go what happened this year? How did I go against my intention? Did I achieve the desired feelings? What surprised me? What did I learn about myself? Where, probably most importantly, where did I keep coming up against myself? I want to be this person, but for some reason I keep behaving this particular way. Then I start doing a forward-looking practice and go, okay, this is what really brought me joy or love or piece over the last year. So let's make sure we keep prioritizing that. And then also, these were the things that took away my energy or took away these positive feelings. So how can I either work on these things, or how do I create systems to support them? And then that really sets up the year. And what I'm really more focused on is the process rather than the destination. I'm just focusing on, okay, what's the journey of growth? Because what is a year? It's an arbitrary number, really. Like, it doesn't really matter if we do something this year or next year. No, what matters are we progressing to become the human that we really want to be.
Absolutely. I have a similar process that kind of goes into the reflection and then asking the questions to then lead us into the year intentionally. I call it my intentional year because, like I said, I'm obsessed about this topic because I think without our intentions, we're kind of like stumbling through life. I think that like when we have that deep seated why to what we're doing and actually being able to focus on something like a word, let's say, I don't know, let's say an intention is elevate this year.
Mm,
And so elevate, gosh, when you think about the word elevate, it's like, wow, I need to step it up a notch. And like, how could I show up in a way where I'm like bigger than I've ever been, like show up even more powerful than I've ever showed up. So I think when we have these like words or these intentions, you could call them, it has us focus on the why and the purpose behind what we're doing. So I
it
love that you
does.
crystallize that. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
And it
Yeah.
helps us override the subconscious programs. Most of us are on autopilot and we're just running the same script. And if we're lucky, we got some programs that really worked for us. Unfortunately, most of us were coded with some pretty faulty programs through our childhood, through society, through our parenting, through culture. And we will just keep, by the nature of a subconscious program, it will just keep doing the same thing over and over again until we become aware. That's really our role, is to become conscious, and then we have the opportunity to override the program. However, it takes commitment. It also takes a lot of repetition, because by nature of the program, it doesn't want to be changed. So you have to override the program with commitment. And this is the power of like that one intention. Every moment you can come back and you don't have to think about many different things. You just go, okay, all right, if I want to elevate, what would that look like right now? And then naturally an insight will come through and you'll start doing the actions to elevate yourself. And then over time, you'll get positive feedback through feelings, and the subconscious takes on direction through the strongest feeling, strongest emotion, and then it'll create a new program for you. And now you don't have to think about elevate. It just automatically happens for you. You're just by nature someone who just elevates every experience.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about awareness because you're talking about one of the most key points. And I know this is kind of, so I have your book, Intentionality. Of course, I want everybody to grab this beautiful book.
Thank you.
So awareness, we can't intervene in a world we cannot see. So how do we deepen our awareness about our subconscious beliefs? That means they're beliefs that we don't even know are running the show. They're kind of like, again, it's unconscious. So how do we bring more awareness into changing those patterns that are running the show that we didn't even know were running the show?
Great question. So, first is, when we are thinking and we're analyzing, it means that we're not focusing on observing ourselves. So that to start with, we have to actually start observing ourselves. And that could be through breath, it could be through meditation, just to slow everything down and see, oh, that's interesting. When someone looked at me this way or someone said this thing, I automatically went into this default behavior. Now, that task can be quite challenging. So often what we need to do is do reflective practices to start with. So at the end of the day, just reflecting and doing a review. Okay, how did I show up today? And looking at all the different scenarios, and then being really honest with yourself and asking, is that how I really want to show up? Is that my core behavior? Is that really who I am? Or is that something else? Because that's the program. Another great practice is to do group work, having conscious engagements with your partner, with your friends, with a coach who can bring back that awareness to you, who can reflect back. Do you know that every time this happens, this is how you react? Now, I'll use the word react, not respond, because it's an automatic program. So once again, unfortunately, we have to see some truths about ourselves that we might not want to believe about ourselves. Often we have a conscious desire to be someone, but our subconscious is actually doing the opposite. There's a lot of people, especially in sort of the self-help world, who talk about abundance, and they want to be abundant, and consciously they know the benefits of abundance, but their subconscious program is completely in scarcity,
Mm,
because you can just tell by the way they're acting.
mm,
So that's another really key element. And I think the more place time in stillness is super powerful, because in stillness, you you effectively get to override the program. And that's why the breath is so important, because the breath is the one thing which happens automatically through the autonomic system. We don't have to be thinking about the breath. It's happening, and it's through the breath. It's combining with glucose, and that's creating energy, which is amazing. It's enabling every faculty in our body to operate. However, we can also consciously take control of the breath. I can suddenly go, all right, I want to build up some energy, and I start breathing fast, and then that activates me. So that tells me it's the doorway to the subconscious. So using the breath will bring awareness, and then we get to choose, do I want to run with the old program, or do I want to respond with a new behavior which will result in the feeling which ultimately I'm trying to get.
so good. I want to go deeper into breath, but before I go into that, I don't know if I said this offline. I think I did. Is I think it's less about adding things into our life. It's more about removing. And that's kind of what you're touching on, is removing these stories or this programming that we carried from our childhood. So what could you say to that? What is the thing like would you agree to that point that it's more about removing than adding more into your life? Because I think it's really like returning to the basics, right? Breath is a basic.
It really is, Erica, and it's a very humbling experience. I think I've got to some level of awareness, and then I do a deep, I call them energy interventions, where I could be on a silent meditation retreat or a breath journey. And I go in and I'm like, oh, whoa, there's another story. There's another attachment that I need to let go of. So I share that to let people know that it's a continued journey, and we're never really there, but it becomes a little bit easier each time. However, it's also very humbling, because you realize, I thought I was somewhere, but I'm not there. And by the nature of taking away things, we take away the distractions. So often we'll see people who are throwing themselves in a particular area of their life because they don't want to face the fact that the relationship's in trouble. And they'll go all the way in a business life. I was literally coaching someone on this later, and they're probably going to become a billionaire. And I went, the really sad thing is you're going to get to a billionaire and you're going to be like, oh, wow, I just distracted myself the whole time, because what I really wanted was a deep love connection. Now,
Mm,
it's not that becoming a billionaire is bad. I said you can actually have both, but you've got to know what really matters to you, and the loving connection is more important than anything else. So we can't distract ourselves. We have to simplify and come back to what really matters. And what really matters to most of us is probably the same. Yeah, it is for the most people. It's that feeling of feeling worthy or whole. There's a deep loving connection. There's a feeling that we're impacting our humanity, serving our brothers and sisters, and that feeling of having some play, enjoying this human body, and creating something. That's really what we want to be doing. And if we just simplify, and this is something which I talk about, the 5 priorities of an intentional being, if we focus on those 5 priorities and just go, how can I bring more love into my life today? How can I create something today? How can I play? You will end up living a very purposeful life without really finding your purpose, because that's a
that's so
challenge. So
true.
many people are focusing on finding your purpose, but that can be a trap as well, because you feel like you're not where you need to be.
Yeah, and you're constantly trying to again seek something outside of you to basically make you feel like you're enough or you're doing something worthy in your life, right? So touching on that, one thing I love to talk about is alignment. And
Mm.
I think some people think about like how could I balance my life between work and play and relationship and all these things, but I feel the focus should be alignment, and I would love to hear what your thoughts are on that, if you're in agreement, and what would you say to that?
I am Erica, and this is deeply personal to me right now, because
Mm,
I've just become a first time father, and all the cliches are true. So, and what it's done for me is made me realize things can't just have one benefit. They have to have a value stack of benefits. So what do I mean by that? Now, by the nature of my time is being compressed, and I have a very important need is to bring up a great son and also be a great partner. So suddenly I need to, when I do something, I need to make sure it's just not meeting one need. I need to make sure it's meeting many needs. So that could be when I go for a workout, I make sure I'm with a friend and potentially we're talking about something of business. That could be a benefit. And we're stacking these different elements. And what it enables you to do is you can still do multiple things. This has been my biggest realization. You can do multiple things, but they all need to be supporting each other. So look at my life right now. From the outside, people go, whoa, he's doing a lot of things. He must be distracted. It must be really challenging for me. To be honest, right now, life in some regards is the most easy because everything is aligned with each other and they're working. So when I'm out speaking, I'm earning cash for my business. I'm also bringing awareness to my book. I'm also bringing opportunities for our like coaching and consulting business. I'm also referencing my new wellness resort, and that brings people to either go to it or potentially become investors. So it just creates this flywheel effect. I've also now, when I people do work with me, I now have a physical space where I go, well, rather than me coming to you, you're going to come to Portland to come to Cascada, our thermal wellness resort. And that way I'm a client of my own business. So then I can see what are we doing really well. I'm also bringing people to it. So you can see how it all just adds up. Now, that took a while for me to really focus on, and how I did it was just get really clear on my priorities and then just keep saying, okay, how can it all work together? How can we all rise up together? And once you have that, it's just the most magical feeling because nothing's in conflict with each other. And you also get this momentum and you get this exponential effect where what Jim Collins talks about is that flywheel where everything starts working together.
Beautiful. I love that you laid that out. And I think this is a journaling practice that somebody should do, is really asking, like, what are the, I mean, this is what I guess this is what I would recommend. Of course, you could interject, but writing down obviously your interests or those things you're pursuing, and then thinking about like, how does this cross over? And just thinking like, kind of like, oh, it could be this, it could be this. Like you were talking about the event and speaking about this, connecting and building new relationships and finding out what their needs are. Maybe the need is a new book to read, whatever it may be. So it's constantly just like merging it together, as you kind of touched on.
Yeah, it's a great way to do it. And I learned a lot from living in Aspen and Boulder. We felt a conflict between business and our personal time and our fitness. And the way we do meetings now, it's either on the gondola or on the going for a walk. So we're not going to a bar to have a drink, because that would always be going, well, now that's going to affect my sleep and that's going to, when am I going to get my workout in? Now we say, if you want to see me, let's go on this adventure. And naturally, people are more open in nature as well. So it has this compounding effect where you actually get better results as well.
That's remarkable. Okay. So I know a lot of people are trying to shift from the hustle culture to more ease and alignment and fulfillment. And I know this is very much your story of how you were even led into branding the name Intentionality, which I think that's amazing. You were even able to get that branding name. So remarkable. But what would you suggest when people are like the new approach? What would be the first steps? Like, of course, a lot of the things we've already touched on, but like if you were to be like, okay, somebody wants to move from this hustle to then alignment and fulfillment, we touched on that they need to think about how they want to feel, but what would be some other first steps we should suggest?
Yeah. So I think this flows quite well into, I have a process called the scientific manifestation process. And I call it as an accelerant of intentionality. It's a way, once you've recoded your negative belief programs, your negative belief loops, then you have an opportunity to create them. So first, you have to go through the work and identify where you're getting in the way of yourself. If you have a scarcity-based program in your subconscious, it doesn't matter how much you try, you're going to just keep creating more scarcity in your life. So this is why we've always got to do that deep explorative work and recode the belief loops to go from negative to positive. So let's say you've done that. which is a commitment. And if you just focus on that, your life's going to change. But let's assume you've put that in place. Then we need to get really clear on what it is that you're trying to create in your life. It's amazing how many people aren't clear. When you really ask them and go, what do you really want in your life? They can't answer them. Sometimes they will give some material object, but then as we've spoken about, it's about why, like what's the feelings for you. So mapping that out. Then what we need to do is we need to empower the subconscious. So the subconscious is a supercomputer. It processes things 1 million times faster than the conscious mind. It also has access to the universal mind, which is this field of energy that everything that has ever come from and ever will comes from this place. So what we need to do is we need to effectively communicate to the subconscious, this is my life. I envision my life. This is how it feels. Now work out how to make this happen. That's the conception phase. We actually conceive with the subconscious, and then what happens? We move into the claim phase where we now need to act as if. If we knew that this was our life, how would we act? How would we speak? Because words are spells. How would we interact with others? And the most important part of that is we need to allow the insights to come through. So rather than sitting down and going, okay, I've got this plan to go and make this happen. And that's one way to make it happen, is like write out all the tasks and go, it's going to be very hard. That's one way, but it's not the efficient way. The other way is to drop in and feel yourself in that place, and then have such confidence that it's there, that then insights come through. Insights come through the universal mind, through the subconscious, come up into our awareness. And it's something like, you have to call Erica today. And you're like, why? Like, why would I call Erica? But you trust the insight. And then Erica says, oh, I'm actually friends with the person. You just said this to me. I'm friends with this person who direct contact, who would be able to help you do this with your book tour. Now, I had no idea that Erica had that. If I tried to hustle, I would have probably reached out to 100 different people to get that outcome. But instead, I allowed that insight to come through me. Now, I still have to act on that. I still have to follow up with you, make sure I communicate. But it was just through a state of ease. It allowed me to get there. Now, I've seen this myself. Personally, I've gone through this journey. We had to raise a lot of money for our new business. And for a period there, I started going to a little bit of scarcity, and I started focusing on, well, I've got to make this amount of calls and I've got to call all these people, and nothing was coming through. Then I just started one day, I just went, you know what? I'm going to go practice what I preach, because sometimes I forget it myself. And I'm going to feel what it feels like to have people coming to us. And I'm going to have an experience where people are just going, wow, I love what you're doing. This is amazing. And I felt that strong feeling. Then 2 days later, I got the insight, why don't you hold an event at the actual property? You know, once people see the property, they're going to be blown away. It's a lot easier than numbers and pictures on a deck. So then I did that. Then I went, well, who would I want to invite? And then out of that, we've raised the money we need. Still had to do some activity, but it wasn't hard and it was enjoyable. And we're having moments of course, that person's going to reach out to us. And then an email comes 2 days later, and now it's better than what we thought. They're actually going, oh, it's not just me. There's a few other people who I've spoken about with this. And then it starts building through that manner.
Beautiful, beautiful. Can you tell us about your wellness retreat? Because we were talking about this offline and I'm like, I got to go. It sounds
Yeah,
amazing and it just opened. So I would love to welcome people listening to this to go check it out.
definitely. So it's called Cascada, and it's a Thermal Springs Wellness Resort and Hotel. So we have 38,000 square feet of different temperature pools, so you can have contrast temperatures, and we also have mineral-based pools, and we have saunas and steam rooms and salt rooms, and then wet and dry rooms. Then we have a social area where you get to hang out and talk, because the downstairs is underground and it's a sanctuary. It's a place for you to retreat and go internal and get to know yourself, which is a very important element. And then we have a social element, and then we have an outside area, so you get the variety of the different experiences. Then we have 65 different wellness classes a week. We have a incredible restaurant, cafe, co-working area, and then 100 boutique hotel rooms as well. So it's really this one immersive place where you get to have an experience and you get to connect. And the word that keeps coming out is magic. People go, whoa, I just felt some magic there. And we're like, yes, that's right. Remember your magic. That's what we're really creating. And it's in Portland, Oregon. And when I think about it, we have a really big local market, but it's one of those places you want a romantic getaway. I could give you the best 3-4 days of your life. Come have a couple of days in Cascada,
Running, yeah.
experience, go to waterfalls outside, go to wine country, eat some great farm to table food, and then go back to your life. And it's a reset. So I highly recommend people check it out. And we're going to do multiple of these across America. We've got the next one in Bend, Oregon next year. And it's just, it's a rush, Erica. It's the ultimate drug. It's the drug of experiencing. People have so much joy, and also we're experiencing so much joy through the process too.
It sounds remarkable. Like I said, I'm running now. I'm going now. So I will definitely include that in the show notes, because I think anybody that's listening to this, as we're talking about intentionality, I believe you have to create the space and the time to be intentional. And so, as you mentioned, it's a great time to reflect and be present, in nature, in these, like, this great sanctuary that you've built. And so I'm so interested. So that will be in the show notes, because I know a lot of people will be interested as well. So back to what we were talking about. What do you think blocks people most from manifestation? I think we already touched on it, but I'm curious if you could add, what would you add to that?
Okay, so this will link back to what we were just speaking about space. The environment really matters. Like, yes, you don't need the perfect environment, but sometimes it's just easier to go to a new environment where you're inspired and you're around positive people and uplifting people. There's been studies now that show the influence of people. For example, if you have a close friend who becomes obese, you're 56% more likely to become obese yourself, even if they're not in the same geographical location, just by connection. So who we're connected to is very important. Now, the core problem with manifestation is it's the ego. The ego is the collection of negative belief loops we have around ourselves, these false perspectives. And we allow our ego to trick us into thinking that, well, if I keep like listening to my fear, it's going to help me. But actually all it does is just attract the thing that we're most confronted about. So to start with, it's really about being honest with yourself and going, do I have the right foundations in order to manifest? If you don't have the belief loop supporting your manifestation, it doesn't matter how much you try to manifest, you'll actually keep manifesting the opposite. So there's a lot of dangerous practices out there with manifestation. This was something I had to have a realization myself as well. They're just like, oh yeah, just do this, do that. Not if the subconscious is working against you. First, you need to go in and do that deep inner recoding work. And once you have that working, and it doesn't have to be very strong, it just has to move into a positive direction, then we can manifest. So I'd actually tell people the biggest mistake with manifesting is you're manifesting. Like, stop manifesting and do the deep exploration work, then go and manifest. And that's why I've positioned it as an accelerant rather than a recoder.
So good. So much gold in what you just shared. And I think that's really what people, because everybody loves hearing about manifestation. That's like, honestly, I think that's like one of the most Googled things. Or I know when I've had one of my most popular episodes was on, I forgot the title of the YouTube, but it was on manifestation. And I know a lot of people, especially when it comes to a New Year, is like, how do I manifest more? But I think what you just shared is key, and something that people don't think about is really what's blocking them.
Yes.
So,
And then probably the other piece is they're so attached to the manifestation that they see it in a certain way, and they get frustrated when I thought I manifested this. Why am I still getting the negative information? And they're not patient enough. The key part is the one thing we can't control is the time or the how. But if you know that the creation has happened, does it matter if it happens in 1 year or 2 years? And I think that's a key element. And that's that claim step of the 3 steps, is to go, all right, yes, the data's telling me the opposite, but I have such conviction in my manifestation. And you know when you've actually done the manifestation right, because you can be getting evidence completely the opposite and it doesn't phase you. You're like, I've seen the creation, I felt the creation. And that's when you keep going. If you're not feeling that way, get back in and do the deep recoding work, because something's getting in the way of you.
Mm. And I know you have in your book Intentionality, you have the work to do to get
Yeah.
into this reprogramming, because I think that's something that we won't go too deep into right now, but I think grabbing this book will really go into the practices you share. I was going to mention, I guess what you're talking about is the illusion of when.
Oh.
Is like, I know you share this. So the illusion of like, when I get there, I will feel this way. And I think that's really what you're touching on, is it's not focusing on the when, but the now.
Yeah, it's such a trap. It was one of my biggest traps. I just kept thinking when. I was an army officer and I'd see people write 7 years of their life off to get the one posting that they think would be amazing. And then they get there and they went, oh no, that was a lie. That was just a way that I tricked myself to go moving forward. I'm even seeing it myself being a new father right now. There are so many moments where you start going, oh, it's going to be so much easier when they walk or when they talk. And from what I've heard, it's probably a lie. It never gets easier. And two, when we live that like that, you're going to miss these moments. And it's these moments that matter, because life is for living. Life is the series of moments, and find the magic in this present moment. So I have to constantly keep being aware, because my ego is trying to rise up and create these little stories, because I'm a little bit tired right now, a little bit vulnerable, low energy. And that's when the ego comes through. So I have to dial up my level of intentionality and watch myself and question and go, is that true? No, it's not. Let's be present right now. Come back to the breath. Let's feel this experience and enjoy how creation is playing out. And
Mm,
what will often happen is, if you get really clear on this, you'll start observing the manifestations that you put in play 10 years ago. Now, some of them might be positive, but some of them might be negative. That's the challenging, because everything is manifestation. That's literally it. We are co-creating with divinity all the time. And if you're not liking what you're seeing, it's because you haven't been conscious in your past. And you'll see that. You'll be like, oh, I wasn't specific enough. I actually did get what I wanted, but I wasn't clear on the elements of what I wanted. So
mm.
take ownership of our life, get clear, and then you'll start getting to this place where you go, wow. And that's really what you ultimately want to be, in this state of awe with life, where you went, oh, this is better than what I thought, because I didn't get too attached with how it was meant to play out, but I wanted those feelings. And I got so connected to those feelings that it didn't matter how it played out. It gave me those feelings.
Yeah. I think one of the big words you just said is ownership, is like
Hmm.
taking ownership of your life, because we are playing a part in everything that is happening in our life. And so I think that through these practices you're mentioning is really taking inventory of the part we play in our own misery or happiness, whichever it may be.
Yeah. And I think that's the key, Erica, is once you take ownership of your misery, it also opens up the path to happiness and peace and joy.
So
If
true.
soon as we play the victim and we give any power away to anything external of us, we are now controlled. And that place, that's misery to me, when I feel like I don't have choice. So take back the choice. And it's a level of self-agency to go, you know what? Even though I don't understand how I got myself in this situation, and even though that act was absolutely horrible and how could that happen, I have to trust that there was some reason that I did this. And when we do that, you get liberation, because it means you can go, okay, what is it that I want to design my life with?
Mm, so good. So good. I love that. Okay. So I believe life is a mirror.
Mm,
And there's this quote, I wrote it down by Carl Jung. Everything, if I pronounce that right, everything that irritates us is about others. Sorry, everything that irritates us about others can lead us into understanding ourselves. So the most pain isn't from what's happening out in the world, but what's going on within us. So you talk a lot about, as we mentioned, breath work. And you also have these other, you call it circuit breakers in your
hmm.
book. How does this play a part in living intentionally?
Yeah. So I love that quote. And it's the idea that ultimately this journey is all about ourselves. and these other people are their messengers to bring awareness to some form of perhaps faulty coding that we have in ourselves. So if someone says something and it really triggers you, maybe it's bringing awareness that you don't feel whole or you don't feel worthy, because how could someone else's words affect you, especially if they're not true? It means that you're vulnerable and exposed. So rather than getting angry at them, see it as a gift and go, oh, thank you. That's something I need to go do deeper work on. And I'm experiencing that in my relationship all the time. I referenced in the book, my partner is my spiritual teacher. She tests me, and she'll find the little spots in me that I thought that I was good with, and bring it up. And it is a gift for me because it's making me stronger and stronger and more aware over time. And when we have that philosophy, suddenly things change, because rather than things happening to us, they're happening for us, and it makes it a lot easier to navigate. So with the breath, what the breath does is it enables us to pause, and this is the idea of the circuit breaker. When energy comes into the system, we can't control the energy coming from outside. Same in a power grid. Sometimes energy will come through the power grid and it'll be too much for the system to handle and it'll blow up. Then we put circuit breakers in where it senses, oh, danger, too much energy. It shuts down the flow of energy coming in and it protects the system, so then you can turn it back on when you want. And I identified this is what we need in life. Sometimes energy comes from the outside world. It's too much for us to handle. And before we know it, all our subconscious programs are activated. We're in reactionary mindset. We're shutting down. We're getting angry, and you lose a few days of energy. And I'm sure everyone knows that in some conflict they've had in their life. They wake up one day and went, what just happened? Like, who am I? Like, what was the fight even about? We don't know. It was just energy. So we need to protect our system. And the circuit breaker that we've all been given with is the breath. And I've put in a number of different versions of the breath to help in different situations. Ultimately, it's about the idea of suspending the moment from reaction to response. So we can go, oh, feeling a lot of energy building up. Let's use the breath. And then we can observe what the program's about to do. And we know from repetition, we know exactly what's going to happen. And we know that it's not going to lead to the desired feelings we want. So we can override and go, okay, what would a behavior be that would lead to the feeling we want? And our body's going to be telling us the opposite. It wants to go into the automatic program, but luckily we have free will to override that. And then suddenly you've now created a new pattern in your body. And over time, those things won't trigger you anymore, because you're like, oh yeah, that's not true. I know that about myself. You have a conviction with yourself. And an analogy I like to use about the power of the subconscious is, if you have someone on a boat who has never sailed before and we're out on the waters, and you start going to them, oh, whoa, you look really sick right now. Are you okay? They'll suddenly go, are you sure? And you're like, oh yeah, you're looking really bad. They will literally become sick, because the subconscious is so impressionable, and it will just create any situation. Now, if you try to do that same tactic on an experienced sailor who's traveled across the world, he'll just laugh at you, because his subconscious isn't impressionable, because he has such a strong program in the other way. This is the same in life. We need to be aware that our subconscious is being impressed all the time, and we need to get to a place where our beliefs are so strong in these positive areas that other people's actions don't affect us. And that's really what I think the life goal is to get to a place where we don't need anything from anyone else. No validation, no recognition. Someone can say something negative of you and it just washes off your back. Now, it's not a narcissistic way, but it's just a deep knowing of what you are. Because once you really connect with what you are, you realize you're infinite. You realize you are divine, you are loving. And these human experiences, you just laugh at them. And that's why you see all the great spiritual leaders and gurus, they're all laughing the whole time, because they're seeing how funny we are in our human element.
Oh, that's so true. I love that. One of the things, actually, I'm going to do something fun. I like to do this sometimes with books that I have on my table from the people I'm interviewing. I'm just going to turn it to a page and we're going to talk about it.
All right.
Let's see and if it's something we're going to talk about, I'll change the page, but let's see. Oh, yes. I like this one. Actually, it was one of my questions. So leveraging our energy. Let's talk about it.
Okay. So goes back to being a victim. We often hear, I don't have enough time. And time is limited. So why would we operate from that place? It just feels constrained, and it's not a great place. However, we see that some people use their time to have a lot greater impact. Some people can do something in 1 minute that other people can do in an hour. Some people can walk into a room and you feel magical and you feel inspired, and other people you feel drained. And that's where I realize energy is so much more important than time. If we keep focusing on time, we're going to be just operating from the old ways where the idea was if you work harder and for longer, you'll get greater results. But we've seen that now with, especially in the athletic performance, we've realized that no, that's not the case. That often can actually cause greater problems. We can get injuries. And what we started focusing on was more of the recovery, which is about how do we reboost the energy so then we can have a greater performance in those training sessions. Very similar with life. We can take, we can, we can utilize time to get us into a place, for example, breath or meditation in the morning, where if we do that, then the rest of the day we're going to have better decision making. And we know the power of decisions, that they impact other decisions. So one of the biggest challenges and the fallacies of a busy person is they think, I don't have time to do this. And that's why there's a Zen proverb which says, if you don't have time to meditate for 20 minutes, you need to meditate for an hour. And that's because, yes, you lose time in the day, but then you'll utilize your time so much better throughout the day. So I'm just always focusing on, okay, where's my energy at right now? What can I do to boost my energy? And there are a number of things. It could be going for a walk, getting sun in my eyes, eating nourishing food, having a conversation with you, Erica. My energy has just improved. And or the breath. So many different mechanisms. And it means that we aren't hostage to the constraints of our life.
So good. And I think that's so true. People don't realize, like, when they're working for a while, obviously it could get draining because you're looking at a screen or you're sitting down. But if you just get up, literally go outside for 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, oh my gosh, like instant energy. It's amazing. And I know sometimes when I wake up, especially with the time difference, I'm waking up at 5 a.m. So it's so dark in the room.
Mm-hmm.
I feel so exhausted just because it doesn't work with my clock. I'm not meant to wake up at 5. I'm meant to wake up like 6. But anyways, so I wake up and once I get up and I turn on the light, like then I feel more energy. And it's like there's just a slight difference. The only thing is the light. And so going out in nature, sunlight, moving your body, it's night and day, the difference you'll feel. Otherwise, just sitting down and cranking away at your emails, whatever it may be. So yeah.
Yes. And being aware that what gives you energy and what takes away your energy. So one of the most powerful tools I talk about in the book is an energy audit. And over the week, you review everything you do and basically go, did it give me energy or take away energy from me? And what were some of the themes that came through? And you start realizing, I feel better when I do a workout in the morning. So then maybe do a workout each morning. And what that gives you is it basically gives you choice and freedom, and realize that you can always change your energetic state. It's amazing. So you don't have to be tired, and you can also be prepared. So for example, I did a parasite cleanse because I discovered I had a
Wow.
parasite in my body through a GI test. At the
By the
same
way, I've
time,
heard those are, sorry to interrupt, but I've heard
yeah,
those are wild. Like,
yeah, they
and I
are.
hear, actually, I'm interviewing somebody that is all about detoxes and cleanse. And I'm excited because I think so many people have parasites and they don't realize it. Anyways, I didn't want to
Yeah.
interrupt. So
No, I love it. And the reason why I'm sharing this is, if there was ever a time to be a victim of energy, it was being a new father. Like it's the place, and it's so easy. People are always like, "Oh, you must be so tired." And I went, well, all right, naturally I'm going to get less sleep during this time, just being prepared. So then what can I do to counterbalance this? And I went, well, a parasite cleanse. I know that's taking away energy from me. I'll start not eating sugar, because I noticed when I eat sugar, it loses energy. And I did all these different things. And what I noticed was I didn't really lose any energy during this time. because I was prepared, and people actually commented about, wow, you're looking great and great energy. But it didn't come through just a default mechanism. It came through intentionality. I got ahead of it and started recognizing, okay, what could I do? But I just don't think people are willing to do that a lot of the time, because they want to be, they almost want to be a victim of their circumstance. Like, that's part of being honest with yourself, is
Right.
in some regards you are getting something from your negative experience. It's giving you some form of hit or some excuse. And until we become honest with ourselves and free ourselves from that, we won't move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's wrap this with a bow. What are the core principles of living with intentionality?
Okay. So the master key intention is to prioritize feelings over outcomes. If you only ever remember one thing from today, that's what you need to do. Prioritize feelings over outcomes. Then leverage energy over time. Super important. Choose love over fear. In each moment, go, am I leaning into this, or am I backing away? Am I allowing my ego to take over, or am I trusting that love will always override everything? Then embrace discipline over rigidity. So the idea that rigidity is so set up for the ego to criticize ourselves. If we don't do the same perfect morning routine every day, then it's like, oh, I've ruined the day. Remember what it is that you're trying to achieve with the feeling, and just be disciplined, just be committed to it. And discipline is all about self love, really. And then practice presence over comparison. It's a self journey. Don't focus on comparing to others, and also be careful of comparing to yourself, because sometimes we criticize ourselves. Oh, I used to be so much fitter, or I used to be more this way, and that's not helping. Just come back to where you are right now and go, right now, what it is that I can do in order to get me one step closer to those feelings. And if you play those 5 intentions, your life will just suddenly materialize into a different format. You don't even need to worry about how to do it. Just live those 5 key intentions. And that's a daily practice I do. I just keep checking in. How did I go against those 5 key intentions? And then it's amazing what happens from that. Your actions start aligning with them.
Amazing. Okay, can we list those out quickly so people could now write it down?
Yes. So prioritize feelings over outcomes, leverage energy over time, choose love over fear, embrace discipline over rigidity, and practice presence over comparison.
So good. I love it. Oh my gosh. Okay, so that's something you all need to focus on because we want to live with intentionality this year and years to come, obviously. And Finian, has had a journey that has led him here. I would love if you could briefly share, like, how did you even get to this point of, you know, I know you came from kind of that hustle, like, striving for success to then now having ease, alignment, and intentionality.
Yeah, the reason why I wrote a book on intentionality is because I needed it more than anyone. It was a deep desire. I realized I played out the other scenario, the materialistic play, focusing on when, tricking myself all the times, and I ended up getting the win. Like, I got to the place I wanted, and it didn't fulfill me. And if anything, it actually just highlighted how much lack and how much insecurities I had within myself. So it was from a deep need and a deep yearning to feel some inner peace. Like, that's really what I think we're all here to do, is just feel some inner peace. And I just went, all right, I'm going to make that my focus, and I'm going to commit to that. And I went through a very deep personal transformation, and I spent 7 years really facing myself to be able to write this book. So
Wow.
ultimately, hopefully, other people don't have to do that. Like, I did not want people to go through what I went through. I'd love it if you could just pick this up in the new year and just start applying that. And then you don't have to do the sabotaging and the destruction that I did to wake myself up. Because that's one way to wake up, but it's a very confronting way. It's a lot
Mm.
easier to go, I see myself. I'm going to make some improvements. And then it's a lot more gentle.
Yeah, ownership.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really what it is. I
Mhm.
love it. This has been so, so good. So his book, Intentionality, the groundbreaking guide to breath, consciousness, and radical self-transformation. Love it. Finian, where can people best find you?
So the best place would be on social. It's the Finnian Kelly. and also just finniankelly.com, and then you'll just go on a journey. And I would, the way I like to say it is, there's lots of different ways to enter through the experience. Just trust whatever shows up is where you need to go. It might be through the breath, it might be going visiting Cascada, it might be coming to a retreat. You'll work it out. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do with intentionality, is to create an ability to trust yourself more, to trust that intuition. And once you do that, who knows where you'll end up, but I can promise you it'll be pretty magical.
Amazing. Gosh, thank you so much. So good. So much goodness in this episode. But I do want to ask you my final question I ask all my guests. So, if you were to share a piece of wisdom, a life lesson that you've learned along your vast journey, and you just feel like you need to shout this out to the world, what would this piece of wisdom be and why?
Mm. So I'll share one with is quite present with me right now. It's the idea that no one owes you anything. So often are doing something, we're trying to do it for validation, recognition, and it just creates conflict in our relationships. Instead, if we focus on just doing it for ourselves and trusting that divinity, spirit is watching us, isn't that enough? So that's something I'm deeply working on right now, is to just focus on, is this something I want to do regardless of what comes back for me?
So good. I think a lot of people need to hear that. So thank you for that. This has been amazing. I so appreciate you. And everybody go grab the book, go find out more about Finian and see how his resources could serve you today. And thank you so much for your time. Appreciate you.
Thanks so much, Erica.